Pod in My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pod in My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims. I never change. I'm here every week. And this week we have a man from Alabama, a fellow podcast host, times 3 though, like I'll have that kind of time. And he has a story he wants to share with us about how he's gotten to where he is today and where he's come from. Welcome to the show, Mr. Noah May.
Thank you, CK, for having me on. I can't wait to chat with you today and get to talk to your audience.
Amazing. I'm excited as well. So I just want to point out for people at home, so you have a podcast called, such a cool name, Lethal Venom. What is that about?
So Lethal Venom was it was a passion project that I had that kind of stemmed from another project that I did. When I went to Auburn, I had a podcasting class that came up, and I was able to get into this podcast class, and one of the assignments that we had to do was, of course, pitch an idea to the class about a podcast idea that we wanted to do. And in the middle of it, I thought about doing a book one, which I released the book podcast, but when I was trying to figure out the format for the book one, I had another idea come up of, I want to have another podcast where it's more generic, it's more kind of normal, it's not really to a particular niche. I wanted it to be very randomized. And so I pitched that idea to the class as well. I pitched 2 of my ideas, and it got mixed feelings from the class. Some people liked it, some people didn't really like the idea of it. But it was one of those moments I thought, I don't really care what they say, I won't do it anyways. So I went on to try to plan it, and of course it had no name at the time. This was in the very early stages. So then for like 2 years, it was a process of trying to get a name for it. And I finally settled on Lethal Venom. I wanted it to be called Venom, because I thought that was just like a straight to the point answer, and then it was already taken on Apple Podcasts. I saw someone that had already had that name, and I wanted my podcast to not have a similar name to it. And so I put Poison. Of course, someone had that, and then I thought, well, I won't put Lethal Venom in. It was not taken at the point, so I was like, I'm going to claim it now. And so Lethal Venom stems from kind of the saying, the truth hurts sometimes. So my podcast is very truthful. I speak the truth on everything, and I have some really deep conversations on it. I don't hold nothing back. And sometimes the truth can be very hurtful to some people, and just like how venom is lethal to humans, that's kind of how the truth is. It can hurt and sometimes kill people when they hear it. So that's kind of how the name came to be, and a little play on words of how the name kind of stems from.
So not at all what I would have expected I guess that's not true, because I think Lethal Venom, I would have thought, not snarky. I don't like the word snarky. That word I'm looking for. God, we're going to continue the podcast and it'll come to me at some point. Catty, that's the word. Maybe a bit catty, if you will, was what I was kind of thinking. But then you did start you have a Music Talks podcast. That's what's called, Music Talks. And then you have the Southern Reads podcast, which is niche down to books.
Yes.
Perfect. So that's what you're doing today, among, I'm sure, a lot of other things. But take us back to when you were, because you had mentioned in your form that when you were 13, you started struggling with depression and anxiety. What was that like for you? And what were you like before that?
Before I kind of went through rock bottom and kind of how before my life really changed for the future, I pretty much had a normal childhood growing up. I didn't have the conventional household that most kids have. My mom was a victim of sexual assault before she had me, and that's kind of how I was conceived. And so my father was nowhere. I didn't have a father figure at all growing up in the house I lived in. My mom had moved back in with her parents, so it was just my mom and I and my grandparents at the time. So it was a family of four living in the same house, and they did everything that they could to keep my childhood as normal as possible. They didn't want it to be. They didn't want to stem it and make it seem like something was really wrong. So childhood for me was pretty good. I mean, I had amazing parents growing up. I worried about. I watched Nickelodeon all the time, and not Nick Jr. growing up. I would always play in the living room, and would go to elementary school and like school for all hours of the day. I mean, it was just kind of due to the circumstances that most people would think that would be kind of a downfall of it. I actually had a pretty good childhood, but then when I turned 13, I was in 8th grade when this occurred. My grandmother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, and she kind of rapidly went downhill really fast. It was not the kind of a slow burn. It was a very much rapid, life-changing thing that she went through. And during that time, I also was dealing with some bullying, which I got bullied a little bit before then too, but it didn't really cause depression to really occur. Maybe in hindsight, there might have been some depression in there, but I wasn't diagnosed with it at the time, and so I don't really count it as that far back. Because if it was, I was like 10 or 11 when I would have had depression, and but I kind of was bullied just a little bit, kind of, and I also was a porn addict at the time. I actually had a really severe porn addiction at the time because I had randomly found it one night, just scrolling the internet, just looking at something innocent, and then somehow got on porn. No idea how. And I turned rebellious too. I didn't really want to do schoolwork at all. I had C's and D's in all my classes. I really was going through rock bottom. So coping with depression at such an early age for me was something that was not talked about at all. I was actually shocked at how severe it would get and kind of how far it went. I did have suicide ideation at the time. Never attempted anything, just had the thoughts in there. And it got kind of severe at one point to where it was, I had to be watched a little bit because my mom could tell something was wrong, so it was constantly being watched and felt like someone was over my shoulder 24/7. So there was just a lot of watchfulness for it, and then so that's kind of how depression came. And I got diagnosed with a special form of it. I have clinical depression, and for people that don't know, it's a form of depression that comes and goes in waves. It's very hard to detect when it'll occur and when it won't. For an example, I could go 3 years depression free and then have 1 week of being depressed, and then it goes away for 9 years and comes back for 8 months. That's kind of how it's been classified as. I have particular months throughout the year where it is more severe than others.
Winter months?
Yeah, so there are times of the year where it is a little bit more noticeable, and it kind of comes very I can prepare for it, but then there are times where I do get depression spells just randomly and never couldn't have planned for it. So that's kind of how 13 started out for me. And
Wait, so that was all 13? Holy shit, okay. I'm like, wow, okay, so that was all in the 13th year. So that's heavy. Like, first of all, You're from Alabama, correct? Which
Yes.
very conservative state. You are in. I don't even want to say a broken family because, like a part of me, it feels to me like you had a very full family life growing up, right? It doesn't fit the traditional, I guess, as you said, but I don't like the idea that it was broken. Your mother had a terrible thing happen to her, but then a wonderful thing came from that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you had to support your grandmother and your grandfather. Like, yeah, so like to me that doesn't register my brain is broken, right? You had a
Yeah.
loving upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
But at 13, like I mean, there's parallels between us because I went went through similar things, not all of the things. Like I didn't have a grandmother or a grandparent who passed away, and I did have like a nuclear family. But I was a pastor's kid, and when you turn 13, like juices start flowing in both males and females, right? Hormones start to take a hold. You're getting bullied at school. A part of your home safety net starts to rapidly deteriorate with your grandmother's Alzheimer's, I believe it's that was, or dementia.
It was both.
Okay, so that's a heavy, lot for a 13-year-old to sort of take on at the same time, and to be bullied at school as well on top of that. So what happened next?
Following the years when I started high school, it was just kind of a 4-year battle with depression, off and on. My grandmother did end up passing away when I was 15. I did lose her very young. I was not a freshman that year, and so that was kind of the start of how my depression would come around every year at the beginning of the year. But then throughout high school, it was just kind of a hit or miss thing of depression comes and goes. I was on the same medicine for years, and it kind of was helping a little bit. But when I turned 18, that's when the anxiety got introduced. So I was a senior. It was my last semester before I graduated in May. So was just 2020. So of course, the whole world was on fire in 2020. About February around that year, I started getting these kind of bad, I wouldn't say nerves, but it was just how you feel when you get nervous about something. But I couldn't tell what it was for or what it was from. I would have times where I would wake up in the middle of the night around 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, and would get real nauseous to the point where I would throw up. Without no reason. It was just kind of a very bad nausea pain, stomach pain, and this happened for about a month, off and on. And it would either happen in the middle of the night or early in the morning before I went to school. So this was like 7 a.m. when I woke up. We thought that it was just like a flu. I thought I had some kind of bug. We didn't think anything mentally was wrong. Went to the doctor. He thought it was the same thing. And so we came home, and it just kind of was a recurring thing for a month, off and on. So my mom and I started thinking, could it be my depression? And then I said, well, because at that point I had it for a little over 4 years. But I told her, I said, I've not had this kind of symptom from depression. And I mean, my depression's been worse than it is now. Which at that point it was kind of small, but it was starting to get worse because this sickness was not going away. So I told her, I don't think so. We went back to the doctor, told him everything that was going on, and he was kind of baffled too. And you don't really want to make your doctor confused or have a doctor that doesn't know what's going on. So of course I thought, oh, here I am, probably rare case scenario. I have a disease that's not yet been determined or been classified yet. So I thought, oh boy, here we go. And then he said, do you know, he asked me how school was going, and I said, well, other than one class, that's been really difficult. I've had all A's all semester. I've not really had a really hard time at school, except for one class. And he said, "Do you think you're getting nervous about that one class?" And I said, "Well, if I am, it's stupid that I shouldn't." We did he made me stay out of school for a week to see if it was kind of a nerve thing. Lo and behold, it was. My nausea spells did not come on as frequently as they were, and we went back for a week later for a checkup. And he said, "I did some more research. I think you do have anxiety." And I said, "But I don't have the tightness in my chest, and and don't breathe, because that's just what I've always known anxiety to be." And he said, "Well, in some instances, it's not really common, but it can happen." And I thought, here I go being the minority again. I was like, I'll just be in the 0.1%. I'll just represent y'all. That you do kind of have, where people do have nausea spells to the point where they do vomit. That is kind of their form of anxiety attacks. I thought, well, that's lovely. He put me on a strong medication at the time. He recommended that if I wanted to do homeschooling, if that would help, he would be all for homeschooling. He would go and talk to the school and have a written note for them as well if they needed to have any kind of assistance in it or anything. They said I can come by and we can talk to them about it. Which of course we ended up not doing it because COVID happened and the school shut down. So luckily we didn't have to do it, but we were that close to doing it. I did have to get put on Ensure for a protein shake to help gain weight, because I did lose between then 20 pounds of how much weight I lost. I weighed 140, and by the time I got the diagnosis I was 120, so I had a very significant weight loss. I always had trouble with weight growing up, but it's never been that severe. So I was put on that for a month to help gain the weight back, and once I was able to gain the weight back, I could stop drinking those. But my body had really bad repercussions from it. I had very weak muscle mass. I was basically skin and bones. I think my ribs were showing, which I always did have a problem with my ribs showing, even though I've got a gut for some reason. I have like a fat stomach, but yet you can see my ribs, because I've got the weirdest body type you'll ever see. It's like malnourished and fat at the same time.
My brother told me when I was a teenager that I had an old man's body, and what you're describing right now is essentially what that looks like, right? It's the top part of you looks slightly emaciated, and then the bottom part of you looks just well fed, but it's just on the same torso, right? So
yeah,
so I totally get what you're saying. I think I have the same body type, to be honest, as I've seen so many people with it as well. Just where men hold their weight, right, is in their gut.
Yeah. It always seemed to be like that as a kid too, which I didn't really show it as a kid. I was always skinny. Everyone always did make fun of me for how skinny I was and everything. But I actually had so much loose skin on my hands to where I couldn't really open up bottles anymore. So any like Coke bottles, water bottles, milk cartons, anything that would have like the rough edge and kind of like the lines around the rim, I couldn't open it, because on my hand, this part of my hand, the skin would peel back. So I would actually have tears in my skin from trying to open up a Coke bottle. So I would always have to use my shirt or a gripper to help open a bottle. It was really embarrassing to really to have to keep that a secret and try to hide my hands because of how much weight I had lost. Going down the steps, I was real shaky because of all the weight I'd lost. My strength and just my body was all disproportionate at that point. So I had a lot of repercussions from just that 1 month of not knowing what was going on, and my anxiety for everything spiked during that time. Going to the store, going to the gas station 5 minutes down the road, to a friend's house, relative's house, just anything. It could be anything. My nerds, I would get anxiety from.
Well, it's compounding too, right?
Yeah.
On top of everything, especially if you're not understanding what the problem is. You're going through changes in life. You're finishing school. You're potentially getting ready to go off somewhere else. You've got this weird thing happening to you. It all compounds and spirals, and you end up. We end up being our own worst enemies in those situations because we're adding to all of it. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Partner today with CK Sims and Pod in My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, we have been talking to Noah May. He has been walking us through his heavy teenage life, because the childhood life was good. So the teenage life, at the age of 13, he was diagnosed with depression, and then again at 18, he was diagnosed with anxiety. And so you were talking about how you had lost so much weight on your hands, you were able to open like normal, like the ribbed bottle caps. And yeah, so you said that this was in 2020, and my mind was like, I did the math, I'm like, you're 22, I think you may be. And then I had to correct myself. You're the second youngest person I've had on my show. So, right? I had a 17-year-old female writer who's written like 15 books and released them not too long ago. So you're 22, but you went to Auburn. Is Auburn a university?
Yes.
And what did you do? What was your...
Well, before there, I went to community college first for 2 years. From 2020 to 2022, I went there for journalism, and then I transferred to Auburn and continued majoring in journalism for 2.5 years, and then graduated with my BA in journalism it's actually almost been 1 year, actually. It's coming up on 1 year, which feels like it was just yesterday.
Well, a year can go by very quickly. So.
Oh, yeah. So
well, and if you think about it, it's been, I guess, almost 6 years since the pandemic hit, and it still feels like that was just last year. Like, it doesn't feel like that was so long ago. 6 years is a lot of time. But I mean, yeah, so you started community college remotely because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I guess those first 2 years, 2020 to 2022, it would have predominantly been remote?
The first year was, the second year wasn't.
Okay.
So for my first full year, it was completely... I did have one class in person for an hour and a half every week. So I only had to get up and go to class for one day, and then the rest of the week it was online. We, of course, had to wear masks, and we were all separated and spaced out. So that was basically my first year. Second year, it got better over the summer a little bit, and then we came back and we were able to not really wear masks anymore. I still did because I actually ended up getting COVID during that time. I got COVID my first year of the pandemic, of course, first year. And this was just like a few months after I had just gotten over my anxiety diagnosis too. So this was just a huge slap to the face. I had COVID for 6 months. I had very long-term COVID, what most people would classify it as. I had no sense of smell or taste at all. I did not have a fever. I did not have aches and chills and kind of the more noticeable symptoms that you would typically have with COVID. So I was actually going to class with COVID because, of course, I was not diagnosed at the time. So I thought, well, I don't have a fever, and that was kind of always the one thing that we had to look out for. And they would always kind of scan us, and we had to go in with a wristband to show that we were safe. And I just looked back and I thought, the fact that I had a wristband in was not safe. It was like a walking hazard. But I didn't tell anyone because, of course, I didn't want people to think I was just coming in being sensitive, or came in even though I was not cleared. So that was always kind of interesting to think about. I didn't get really tested until December. I did like an endo swab, and of course the swab was defective, and it was a defective test. It did not pick up any of the COVID cells on the swab at all. So of course it came back negative. December rolled around and had not gotten better. They did blood work, and they diagnosed me with COVID due to the cells being detected in the blood work. So I did have COVID in my blood. They said that it was in the ending stages of it, so that there wasn't as many cells in there. But I didn't get better until April, so that was a long process of trying to get that out. But everything that I had really done to work to gain my weight back up all that year had just gone right back to where I was. Didn't eat, did not want to drink anything, so of course the weight started going back down again. My anxiety picked up again, my depression spiked again. It was just like a huge relapse of everything that I had done earlier in the year. And then going into 2021. And then finally, 2021, I had a really bad anxiety attack. Like, it was so severe to the point I was actually almost had to go to the hospital because of how severe it got. And I said, I can't deal with this no more. I can't. We've got to do something. I don't care if it's like we have to pay thousands of dollars to go to Atlanta and Birmingham. If I have to fly out somewhere, I want something done now. And we went to therapy. Therapy kind of had some help. It was just, I needed a good medicine for it. And I was not on any anxiety medication really that was helping. Until 2022, I went to a psychologist and she recommended me Zoloft, or I think sertraline. Godsend. It was just like a switch of my personality changed. My bubbliness kind of.
NNRI, I think, right?
Come again?
It's an NNRI.
Maybe I don't know.
I think it's the neuroreceptor. Yeah, if I remember correctly. So I also was on that medication very briefly. But for you, it was good, is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And you said a personality change. In what, like, did you feel like a different person, or did you just feel like more like yourself?
I felt different. I was more happy. I was actually able to do a lot more things prior to me being diagnosed with anxiety. So going on vacation, eating out at restaurants, which I still have trouble with. It's just kind of trauma from forcing myself to eat. I never ate well out in restaurants anyway, but of course when I got diagnosed with anxiety, it was just like, I can't do it anymore really. So I'm more of a eat at home person, or a carry out more than inside. I'm trying to work on it, but the damage had really been done too much at that point. Being able to travel and go to stores and wake up every day and try something new, though, that was what I was really happy about, because before then I couldn't do anything. So I did feel like my old childhood self again. It was like childhood had come back, and like the good memories of what I had going to on vacation. It was just like it had just came back, and it was like a very good thing to have.
It's so. Question for you. So she put you on Zoloft, but did you stop your depression medication?
No, I take both depression and the anxiety medicine. The anxiety medicine kind of acts as also as a depression medicine as well. So it has sort of it's kind of suited for both. So I do have to take both of them because I've kind of become a little dependent on them, because if I don't take it, all mood shifts, and it's also been kind of a sleep medicine for me as well. If I don't take it, I'm like this all night long. I look like I'm off meth or something, and then I'm like a zombie the next day. So I can't really stop taking both pills, but I haven't had any repercussions from taking it, which has been.
So you said Zoloft. Do you mind if I ask what the other one is? Maybe you just said it.
I think the other one's called. It's mirtazapine. I'm trying to think of the brand name.
I'm just gonna Google it because
Remeron, I think might be what it's called.
Remeron, yeah. I've never heard of this one before.
I take that one for the depression, and I had been taking that for a while. The Zoloft was designated for the anxiety, and my psychiatrist got that on real quick. It was the best decision. It took a while to adapt to it, because she did say that with this new medication, you may feel very tired and fatigued for a day. That's normal. Don't have that as an alarm. And I did. I felt like felt hungover, even though I had not drank at the time. I was not able to drink. I felt like I was recovering from a hangover for about a day or two, and then after that, it was just kind of worked. I still take it to this day just for precautionary reasons. I would like to get off of it at some point, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to be stuck with it till I die, just to help balance out stress and to kind of help my mental state be where it is now. I think I probably will have to stay on it for probably till I die.
Worser things could happen, right? So I will share with you that I am on two medications, one for depression, one for anxiety. I have type 2 bipolar disorder. So I am the type 2 just means I spend more time in the depressive state than I do the upswing state. I don't have a direct connection with God. Don't have that level of mania at all. But, my advice to you is and I think this is so important, nobody wants to be on pills, but if you had a heart condition and needed to take pills to live, there would be no question you're going to take your pills to live. And I find that there's such a stigma around mental health. We're getting better, but we're also medication for mental health. For me, if you were able to find a winning mix at 18 to 20, you're lucky. Because there's so many people out there who go through years and years and years, and they get put on this and they get put on that. The winning mix, the right set of medication is really hard to find. And so I would say, if you have the winning mix and it's serving you, right? And I think that's the piece, right? If it's serving you and you're able to find joy in your life and things, you're able to maybe not eat in restaurants yet, but do things that would normally cause you immense anxiety, then you're on a great treatment plan. And if that's for the rest of your life, that's for the rest of your life. I'm not a doctor, so I just want to help remove any stigma from it, right? Because we all struggle, and I, for instance, in 2017, tried to take my and failed, right? This is after years. I was not diagnosed at 13. The psychiatrist that I saw diagnosed me with type 2 bipolar. He said it probably started as early as 13, if not earlier. And after research, I can definitely tell you I had it when I was 13, because I was very messed up. But I came from a time and a place where this was very taboo. like just to have these conversations, right?
Yep.
So I was 26 before I ever sought help with mental health, right? 44 now, so I'm significantly older. And it's one of those things, having those two medications, I take them daily. One helps me sleep, like it's a sedative as well. And if that is what my body requires for the rest of my life so that I can wake up and live a productive, wonderful life and find joy and be happy and all of those things, thumbs up. That's what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah, it's really all you can really do at this point. It's it keeps me motivated every day. It kind of gets to that point where I do hope that I can get off of it at some point, but if I can't, then it's just something that I have to deal with. And people say that it might go away. I don't know if my depression will ever go away. It's been almost 10 years, or I think it has been 10 years now. I don't think it's gonna go away. I mean, I'm still going. What it's already been done is done. Now the anxiety with the medication might not come back, but even with the medicine I'm taking for depression, I still get depressive spells. It's not something that's going to 100% be curable. Right now, I don't think. Now, maybe later in life it will be. I don't know. But in this moment of time, I think it's just going to be part of who I am.
So I feel it's important to note as well. The medication is great, and I know I'm on it until either it stops working or I don't, right? One of the two. But I think the other piece of it is that if for some reason the world shut down and nobody could get access to anything, and I had to be like, oh shit, I mean, I'm off of this, it's going to be not a fun ride. However, I have, through years now of experience and practice, a whole heap of coping mechanisms that I didn't have when I was younger, right? So that's the other part of that process. Maybe you will get to a point where you say, okay, I want to try and come off of, the original one and see what happens, or this one, whatever it is. And you do it, and you do it slowly with the doctor's, I always will say do it with the doctor's assistance, and check it out. Like, you'll never know unless you try, but at the same time, I'm one of those people that, because I think I'm old now, I don't like to kick the hornet's nest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what you said earlier, I actually kind of see my medicine being a sedative as well, and I can't get off of it because of that. I used to even take a whole pill for sleeping, and I was actually able to stop taking it because the medicine I was already taking already had like a sleep coagulant in it that was actually making me sleep. So I was able to drop off one pill, which I'm always happy to drop off a pill. So I'm like, yeah, I just take 2 at night now all the time, and it's more enjoyable than having to take 3 or 4 at night. Oof.
Yeah, and depending on your doctors, they will throw a lot of different medications at you if you don't advocate for yourself as well, right? That's also a big issue. So you went to Auburn, you got your BA in journalism, you have started and are working on 3 podcasts, which, to me, sounds exhausting. I do 1 podcast and I have an editor. And I have a full-time job as well, but it sounds exhausting. But I think if it's something that you're thoroughly loving and enjoying, especially the niche ones, so tell us about Southern Reed's podcast.
Well, what's funny about this whole thing about podcasting, this was not the plan for me. This was not what I had in mind. I always wanted to podcast as a hobby. I didn't know it was going to turn into a job. I thought this was going to be like a little fun side hustle for me to do, but then God works in mysterious ways, and He was like, I want that to be your job, and I thought, okay. But Southern Reads is essentially kind of a book podcast. kind of how what you would assume from the name and the artwork. It's very much a in-depth book one. I don't post on that one or Music Talks as much due to the fact of how well Lethal Venom took off this year. Next year, I'm hoping to get more of an equal balance to where I can equally have kind of episodes come out for all three shows in kind of in a cohesive way. I'm going to say I have to still try to figure out a schedule, but I would like to try to get those two podcasts up and going as well, because I do like reading and I do love music. Those are two things that I really do like, and I think it's interesting to talk about on podcasts. Not many podcasts do kind of what I am wanting to do with them, so I would like to have those kind of take off. But yeah, so the Southern Reads is kind of a book podcast, and the title for that one kind of just came from my Instagram handle. I was not really creative at all, but I was like, I can't think of a good name for it, so I'm just going to be like, my Instagram handle's unique. We'll just put that in there. So that's how that came to be. And then Music Talks actually came from an essay that I wrote in college. It was actually a music essay that I wrote for I think for one of my journalism classes, I wrote like a music essay, and I called it Music Talks, and I thought that was a kind of a good way and kind of a good title for the podcast, and so I actually got the name for that one off from an essay from college. So it kind of has like a little origin, kind of a connection story to it, and then the book podcast is just connected through my Instagram.
Hey, I love it. I love that. That's where everything has a story, right? And so, what's next for you?
Well, I honestly don't really know. I did have a plan, but everything this year has just kind of gone differently to plan than I intentionally have wanted it to. So I don't really want to have any big plans. I do want to. I am going to do another season of Lethal Venom. I am going to do a second season. I'm going to continue that until next year, and in the next year. I'm recording episodes now till I think middle of December, and then I'm going to take like a 2.5 week break to kind of catch up and everything and get prepared for the second season. I'll start filming for those in July. Other than that, I am working on trying to get a website up and going too, to be a little bit more professional, and I'm kind of just working on some side hustle things for it. I do kind of have like a fourth podcast idea in mind, because I just don't like it. Obviously, I don't like to shut up talking. So I am thinking of doing a fourth podcast, but I'm still in the process of working on that. So yeah, I have some minor things that I'm working on, but I really don't really have like a game plan. I would like to move out, because I did have to come back home from Auburn due to financial struggles. I would like to be able to live out on my own and have my own house and be able to make a steady living for myself, but that's going to take some time, a lot of time. If things do not go better and get cheaper, I probably will be living here for the rest of my life, but that's kind of some dreams that I hope, but I don't know. Podcasting kind of has just been now my new career choice, and that's not really what I wanted it to be, but I've actually really enjoyed doing it, so I'm not mad about it. I've told people, I said, I'm not mad that podcasting came to be. It wasn't what I planned for, but I ain't complaining.
Perfect. So, and yes, I mean, the other thing to remember, I know when you're 22, you feel like the time is running out sometimes, especially if you're an overthinker and you have anxiety. And one thing, you can take it from me, who has been in your shoes, and still has, like you mentioned earlier, that you still have like depressive episodes and some anxiety. I still have them too, but they're not as all-consuming as they once were, right? So,
yeah.
there's no rush. I know you want your own house, and that's autonomy and all of those things. But there's no rush. There's time. You're 22. Make sure you live and enjoy them as much as possible. And if you have the privilege of living with your mom for a while, or your grandparents, if they're still with us, and all of those sort of things, enjoy that too, right? We don't always get to be with our family and to be surrounded by people that love us. So there's nothing wrong with any of that. I think that that's fantastic and wonderful that you had that opportunity. So people can find you. You do have a link tree, so we're going to put that in the podcast description, and then they can find you. You're pretty much all over the place with you can find your shows on all the podcast sites. Mm-hmm. And then so Venom Talks is still filming right now, but you'll pick up next year for the second season. And then you have some side stuff that and before we go, how's your health today?
Mentally, I'm doing good today. It's been better. I did have depression a few months ago. It did have a really bad spike in, but it again has gone away. So, today I'm doing good. Everything kind of has now started to kind of calm out a little bit. We kind of have accepted reality that podcasting is now my new job choice, and so now I don't have to worry about hunting jobs anymore, really. So everything worked out in the end, but yeah, I'm doing good today. It took a long road. This year's been tiring for me, but it's slowly starting to mellow out.
Of course. And if you were to tell the people at home one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would tell them to keep fighting. I have lived by that motto. I've adapted this quote, and I don't know if someone's quoted this or if it's from another person, if they have, this quote goes to them, but I came up with the quote, once a fighter, always a fighter. Once I have started fighting, I don't really ever give up at all on anything, and I've kind of lived by that motto, and I just want people to know that even if you're going through a really hard time, it gets better. That it's not going to stay like that forever. You just gotta keep fighting, and you gotta keep being positive, and everything does work out in the end.
Love that. It's a good message, good reminder that hang in there. There's always a tomorrow, right? All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for being a guest on Pot in My Noggin. It was a pleasure talking with you today. I wish you the very best as you go forth. I'm going to check out Venom myself. And then for everyone at home, until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@ccsims.com or visit ccsims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.